morning, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I love this participation. This is great. Apologies for the headshot. There's a lot of Kwabna here on the stage. It's a bit much for me. But hi, I'm Kwabna Mensah. I am a creative strategy lead here at Google, and it's really a great pleasure to welcome you all to Insiders. Today is going to be an exploration of creativity, understanding some of the great benefits that there are on the platform, and finding new ways for you guys to use it more effectively and to really express some of your ideas. So thank you all for being here. A little bit of housekeeping. This is the Wi-Fi password. I mean, you guys are going to be so engaged with what we have to say, you're not even going to be looking at your phones, but in the slight cases in emergency, this is the password. And also, there are toilets. So you come out here on your immediate left, you can go in there and do your business and hurry back, because you don't want to miss anything great. I'm now going to welcome Nzama to the stage, who's going to give us a quick welcome and keynote. But before we get to that, this is what you should expect. The ABCDs are creative recommendations about how you succeed on YouTube. For those of you who haven't been for like an Artwell workshop, I know you've got a fan club here, so you guys are probably well versed in that stuff. But if you haven't had the Artwell experience, strap in, it's amazing. And then there's the ABCDs Live, where we will take you through a video. We'll break down how it can be improved, a lot of interactivity. There's some prizes to be won. Woo! Thank you for doing that. Thank you so much for doing that. I was very nervous. So yes, there'll be a prize. And then after that, we'll have some healthy creative conversation, where we'll invite some of our partners as well as our clients to discuss how YouTube works for them. I mean, it's enough me evangelizing about how great YouTube is, but it's better to hear it from those who are using it on the other side. So hopefully that's going to be a really useful discussion for you guys, and you'll be able to ask questions afterwards so you can dig a little bit deeper. So without further ado, I'll welcome Nzama to the stage. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Hi. Oh yeah, that's me. Good morning. Sorry, it's Thursday, so the English starts at time. I'm really running out of data. So if another word slips in, Zulu, Sutu, Peti, she said I just say Zulu. So just know it's because I'm running out of bundles. I'm kind of on my last bundle to Friday. And then after that, no English. So my name is Nzama, and welcome. Thank you for coming. At least you've already seen the agenda. And they said I must be quick. And every time I go to my village and an elder says I'll be quick, you know. And then worse, when a politician says I'll be quick, then you know. Yeah, there's also a pastor. When they say I'll be brief, you know the spirit will also overwhelm them, and the pulpit will take longer. So let me not do that. But let me also welcome you, because I really love creativity, and I'm reading a book now called Narrative Economics, and it's basically about how stories go viral and create economic impact. How did we get inflation this high? And that is actually storytelling. And I was thinking about it, like, wow, I love storytelling. And then I have a 6-year-old daughter who I've watched Barbie, like, repeatedly. And now I showed her Little Mermaid. And I go on YouTube and I said to her, listen, there's Little Mermaid coming. So I show her, and then she says to me, she's black. And I said, what do you think? In the underworld, there's diversity. Maybe your private school not, but underworld, there's diversity. And she's like, cool, I'm going to watch it. And then the thing I just told me was like, it's amazing that storytelling really matters. And in that book, you see that creativity accounts for around about 50 to 80% of ROI, which means great stories told well, repeatedly, really are good for business. They're good for the brand, and they're good for reputation. And I know that to do that, you need a platform. And I'm not here to, I'm kind of more like Animal Farm. For me, I'm like, all animals matter, but some are more equal than others. Same, TV matters. But I know that with the audience that you're targeting mostly they will choose YouTube because it's just a lot more diverse. So am I saying other platforms don't matter? Yeah, they matter, but some are more equal than others. And I'm just here to say that there is a possibility that the creative and the content that you're creating can also sit well on YouTube, and it does work. And I know it works because we've done a lot of work in codifying what works, what creative works. And as you see, you'll do ABCDs. And I've been doing ABCDs. I even added an E for myself, which is effectiveness. And I'm always looking at the ABCD. So when someone comes and gives me a creative, I just write down ABCD, and then I add E. Just sneak it in for myself. And then I just assess the creative using all of those formulas. It works. And then the key thing for me about YouTube since I've been here, if we have 2 million creators who are earning an income on YouTube, that for me is cool. Because make money now matters. So if we have 2 million creators doing that, and then we have millions of people choosing YouTube every day, that also matters. So I think you're in the right place. And I think we are here so that we can figure out how we partner together. And we're definitely not here to replace agencies. Let me put that out bluntly. We are not a replacement for agencies. We are partners with creative agencies. So clients, we're not here to say bounce the agency and just come directly to us. We're here to partner. So the most important thing is, how can we partner? How can we partner in creating great work that sells and that meets your objectives and that meets your key results? And then as you said, the stuff that you're going to be going through here is an agenda, and a lot of it is just guys from YouTube and team from YouTube. Let me be inclusive. The team from YouTube will be taking you through what works, and also we'll also hear from our partners and agency team on what works and how to make it work even harder and how to tell great stories. And I'm looking forward to learning from all of you, and I'm also looking forward to learning on what we can do better and what we can do differently. So thank you very much, and thank you for gracing us with your presence, and may the show be great as you are. Thank you.
Sons of former slaves and the sons of former slaves, will they be able to sit down together?
So, thank you, Nzama, for that intro. This is the agenda. Already been through it, so all that's left is for me to welcome our superstar artwork to the stage.
You know what's unfair is speaking after Mzamo. That can never go good. Hello, everybody. It's been a whole 2 years since I've stood in front of people and spoke. So this is special, right? It's unfortunate that this is happening today when there's load shedding. So we're going to have to excuse that. A lot of people are going to have to walk in slowly but surely. I've walked around and I've asked a small group of people to cheer loudly for me, to faint and make as if I'm doing amazing. So thank you. It's the first time in 2.5 years, so I need something. As most of you know, my name is Artwell. I am the head of creative for Sub-Saharan Africa. And basically what I do is I help media agencies, creative agencies, and clients make awesome creative. But the difference in what I do than most people do is it's a strong focus and a strong lens on impact. It's all about being measurable and making sure that we're creating data-driven creative. So a lot of you already know me. A lot of you I work with. There are a couple of you who are like, no, this can't be his real name, Artwell. He does Artwell Creative. You're doing the maths. Yes, it is true. That is my name. It's Destiny, and I'm rocking it. So. I am on fire. I think we should just end right now, because it can only go downhill from here. So as you all know, we're talking about the ABCDs today. ABCDs is a framework that is like the foundation of the whole creative ecosystem at Google. It's a framework that helps you be able to develop better for the platform, right? What's nice about the ABCDs, while it's great for the platform, it's actually great for video as a whole. So this is very, very impactful stuff, and I hope you learn something from it. But before we get started, I want us to play a little game. And don't worry, you don't have to do anything. I'll do all the parts in the game. So the game is called What's Changed Since 1999? Like this handsome young man here, and this handsome older man here. For those of you who can't see it, that's me, right? And some of you are also calculating, was he really that old in 1999? Let it go. I'm just making a point, right? In 1999, it took 41 seconds for Google to load on the interwebs. Today, it's only 3 seconds. In 1999, 32 inches was the preferred way of watching content, especially premium content. Today, it's only 3 inches. In 1999, big production was the only way you could get really good content. It had to be shot, there had to be lighting, and all that kind of stuff. Today, all you need is phone, Wi-Fi, and a super hot idea. In 1999, I'm loving the it's just amazing. In 1999, prime time was the only time you could watch the best content. And I know some of you watch Generations, Achimoroka, 8 o'clock, all right? 1999, that was the only time you could watch the best of the best content. Today, prime time is any time and it's in your pocket. In 1999, how we viewed content is gum here. In 1999, how we viewed content was very passive. So we laid on the couch and it was just thrown at us, and we just took what we were getting. Today, we are ultra picky because we've got too many options. In 1999, our attention span was substantially longer. Apparently, it was 12 seconds. I don't know who did that calculation, but somebody said it, so it must be true, right? Today, our attention span is shorter. Not because we're dumber, it's because we've got more options. What's not changing? Like this guy here. So, all ads are skippable, right? And I'm not just talking about digital. TV, remote, I change the channel when your ad comes on if I'm not captivated properly. Billboards, if I'm not interested, I'm not going to bother looking. Magazines, just flip over if you don't capture my attention. Facebook, scroll past. YouTube, I think we've probably got the most obvious way of skipping, is the skip button, right? And that's what makes creative so important, as Mzamo highlighted earlier on. There's a lot of studies like this, and this is probably one of the latest one, which is from Kantar, where they looked at, what drives brand sales lift. 49% of all brand sales lift comes from creative. This is huge, right? It's not something that we can just walk past. What this means is that if you are not doing good on this side of the world, all this falls flat. You can optimize as hard as you want on the media side. If your creative is not good, it falls flat. Now, what do I mean by good creative? Good creative still has all the elements that we traditionally know, right? Is it a good idea? Does it tie to, the strategic thought and all those kinds of things? But then there's still that one little pillar that a lot of people are not doing. A good creative idea is a creative idea that conforms to different platforms, right? So you're not just taking one TV asset and throwing it across all digital platforms, right? So, and this is so true now because, as you know, obviously, the way people are consuming is changing by the day. And creative needs to adopt to those changes every single day. So this is where the ABCDs kick in, right? So the ABCDs are, A is for attention. Remember, we've got the skip button. How do you capture attention from the onset? How do you hook people and make them want to watch more? B is for branding. It's very easy to brand badly and get people to skip you, right? Because since the 1960s, when TV started really blasting adverts at us, the framework of TV ads has been the same through and through. You start the ad, you have the brand at the end. And if people start to see that pattern, it's a trigger for me to skip because it's fixedness. It's, I know that this is something that I've seen before. Then the last one is connection. This is probably the most important one for most advertisers, is how do you get me to watch from 1 second to 5 seconds and to the end? That's the one that most people want to know about. And then the last one is direct. How do you direct people to then do what it is you want them to do? So the ABCDs is by no means a thumb suck or guessing from our part. What we've looked at is over 25,000 ads, ran a whole lot of experiments. We looked at things like what drives awareness, what drives consideration, what drives recall. We looked at what makes people skip ads. We looked at what makes people not skip ads. But then also we had to test certain things that we couldn't find in the real world. Like random things like a black and white ad versus a color ad, which one drives more brand recall? Or if an ad is paced fast versus an ad that's paced slow, which one are people most likely to watch the end? If you want to know the answer to that, it's the fast-paced one. So we looked at a whole lot of things like that, and then we took all that and then crafted it into this easy-to-understand framework. Now, does it work? Recently, a study was done, and we found that it actually does work when you use the ABCDs. So what we found is that there's a 30% lift in short-term sales likelihood and a 17% lift in long-term brand contribution. So it does work. But having said that, it's important to note that these are not rules. A world where there is rules for creativity is a world where there is no creativity. They are not rules at all. And I have to say this like a couple of times because I've sat in meetings. The last one was literally 2 days ago where the creatives were saying, you're making too many rules. These are not rules. These are merely recommendations based on data that we found. And we'll continue to find more of these touch points over the years, and we'll just keep sharing them. You can find one thing that works for you in the ABCDs and do that really well. Or you can find 5, but do not turn this into a checklist. The next thing to also note is that there is no silver bullet in this. So it's not a matter of just doing it and it will work. You have to test and learn and see what happens for you. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. But wait, hold on, before we start. Later on, we have a little bit of an activity. So I'm going to play you a video. I want you to watch that video. Try to remember as much of it as possible. There's some prizes linked to watching this video. No pressure. And then from there, I'll start the ABCDs.
Don't you hate it when you just get stuck? You try this, you try that. Nothing seems to work. You ask the internet. Nothing. You ask the internet again, but differently. Maybe you even ask an actual human. Nobody seems to know.
How can I get the help I need? I'm stumped.
That's how I was. And then I found the thing.
Looks like a box.
It's not. Well, it is a box, but that's not the thing. It's the thing. And the thing about the thing is it unsticks the stuck no matter how stuck you are.
I want one.
Of course you do. It's the thing.
Remember this. There will be prizes linked to it. So we're going to get started with the ABCDs. We're going to start with A, which is attention. So the first and most obvious thing that we think about as advertisers placing our content on the platform is the skip button. How do we get past that? How do we get people to watch? Now, we've given you 5 seconds to audition. And a lot of the times when people put stuff on our platform, they don't think of it that way. They don't think of the 5 seconds as an opportunity to audition to your audience. And that's what you should be actually doing. And the first point within attention is jumping in and getting straight to it. And why is this important? Is a lot of the time, the ads that we receive are TV ads. TV ads are built for a captive audience. What that means is that there's an assumption that for some odd reason they're chained to their chairs and they can't move and they're going to watch your ad from the beginning to the end. So what you do is you start really, really slow, and then you build up, and then you have a climax in the middle, and then you close down and you close off the ad. And it's great. I mean, it works, right? TV shows work like this. Movies work like this. It's a hill story arc. It's okay, right? But for digital, majority of the people who are watching on our platform, and it's actually 70% of the people who are watching on our platform, are watching on mobile devices. And the last thing that they have time for is waiting for a slow lead-in. You know, the car driving in the hill, and then you've got that beautiful scene. They don't have time for that. What we recommend is you bring the dessert right up front. You front-load your story arc, and you open up with the impact. Now, for a lot of brands, that's not possible because, I mean, if you're an insurance company, that's really hard. You know, you can't have like machine guns and Rambo jumping out selling you Omo, you know? But what you can do is use the most compelling parts of the ad. The most compelling parts of the ad could be a compelling price point. It could be a funny joke. It could be a cute baby. Whatever it is, watch the ad and bring that to the front. And what you'll notice about what I'm saying here is I'm not saying go shoot another ad. I'm actually saying take that TV ad and just re-edit it so that you bring the most compelling parts right up front. But if you want to guarantee being skipped, take a TV ad as is. Take it as is. That's actually probably like, remember I said to you not tick check boxes? This is a checkbox. Because people are going onto YouTube to enjoy a moment, maybe in between work, in between church for some lazy people. But it happens, right? You just, an ad pops up, and if it starts off slow, it's really off-putting and people will skip. So start early, get into the story much, much, much more sooner, and try bring some desserts, which I like to say, right at the front. The next bit is using audio and supers to amplify your story. So when we talk about supers, we're actually talking about like big chunks of text. And you'll see that this is actually a pattern that we're going to see across the ABCDs. Use big chunks of text, like 2 or 3 pieces of text, and a voiceover says it on top of it. So we call this see and say, right? So, in stores now, you have that in big, bold text, and then you have a voiceover said. We've seen this to be a big amplifier of performance. Again, not all concepts will work with this kind of strategy. It's only when you have that kind of opportunity. But if you really want to land specific points, and I'll give you an example. If you're in banking and there's some complicated terms that you want to throw through, have those being seen and said. This one is a big one. Like I mentioned to you earlier on, 70% of the people who watch on our platform are watching on mobile devices. So that means we actually need to build for mobile devices. And that's why if you're going to take a TV ad, place it on the platform, this is another reason why you're going to get skipped. Now, there are 2 things that you want to do when you're optimizing for the platform. The first one is frame for small screens, right? So what I mean by that is, frame. So if somebody's talking, zoom into them. Obviously, you don't want the whole ad to be super zoomed in. You need to find those key moments. So it's product usage, right? Key moments when a joke's being said, when you're showing the logos and all those kinds of things. But what's important to note is that a lot of the time we assume that everybody has got the smartphones that we have with the gigantic screens. Especially in this continent, we're finding that there are people who have mobile devices where the screen, when held this way, is the size of a matchbox. So again, if you're going to open up with that car, driving up the hill far away with the beautiful sunset, if I can't see it, I'm not going to bother to readjust. I'm just going to skip the ad. The next bit is contrast, right? Contrast is a very big piece when people get skipped, right? A lot of the times when our mobile devices are pre-set up, and it's not even by ourselves, they're set to auto-dim. And if that's not the case, for those who are a little bit more tech-savvy, we'll then set it to be dim and save battery life. If you've got this beautiful, moody, dark video, you're asking to be skipped. You have to have contrast. There has to be rich color. There has to be, it has to be dynamic and all those kinds of things. This one also, like I said before, there's no checklist. This one is actually very important. This one is another one that will guarantee you to get skipped. While on TV, it works beautifully because you've got that big screen and you're probably in a well-lit environment. Nobody carries their TV on the taxi and watches it. So you're never going to have a situation where the light is too bad. So that works, but not on mobile devices. So that's A, right? Now that's how we get you at the beginning and make sure that you can get past the 5-second mark. And that's probably one of the biggest hurdles that advertisers need to get through. And the stuff that we're asking for is not too complicated and not too expensive because we're not saying reshoot. We're just saying optimize in such a way that you're building for the platform. The next one is branding. So this one also speaks to the fact that a lot of the times when we build in the same way that we've built TV ads since the 1960s. We're building for a captured audience that we're making assumptions will never move. So how do we make our ad? We do the ad and then we dedicate the logo or the branding to right at the end. Right? That's building for a captive audience. What you need to remember, like I mentioned to you earlier on, is that we're dealing with a very picky audience. They move around very, very quickly. So we need to move as quickly as they do. So we always recommend that you need to brand at the beginning, especially if you're doing the upper funnel stuff. Why do you need to brand at the beginning? Notice I'm not saying logo, I'm saying brand, and I'll emphasize exactly what I mean by that. So in the first 5 seconds, you are going to get people who are going to skip you. It's just the way it is, right? You want to limit that number, but people are going to skip you. For those who have skipped, you might as well leave them with something. Have some kind of brand recall left there. Remember that when people skip your ad, if it's TrueView ad, you don't pay for it. So it's a free 5-second ad. Why not take advantage of that? Now, how you do the branding is a different story, and it's different for different brands. I'll give an example. Nike, they can open up with a big black screen and a Nike tick 2 seconds on screen, and we'll all watch it because we know this is going to be a beautiful story, because that's just the way the brand works. But if you're the municipality of Komandiport, and you think that you're going to get people, you're going to do the same thing, it's not going to work. And it's really about you understanding what you are to your brand. And I've had some hard conversations with clients where, the brand is not as exciting as a Nike, but they insist that they are. You actually have to be honest with yourself on that. So, in a situation where you are working in Komandiport municipality, what you want to do is start to play around with using different branding tricks, right? Things like product placement, maybe subtle mentions via voiceover, the colors, if the municipality has a mascot, bring that in, right? But be subtle about it. You also don't want to be overt. But if you can't do any of those, logo in the top right-hand corner is always going to be the best. Smaller logo in the top right-hand corner. Never here, here, or here. Why? Because we've got UI interfaces that will cover the logo. Skip button will cover here. There's a interface that covers there, and sometimes a call to action overlay that can cover there. That is the safest place. That's if you can't do any of those other branding tricks. The next bit is reinforcing brandings with audio mentions. So like I mentioned to you earlier on, this is a pattern that we see a lot, where we talk about using audio to reinforce what we're trying to say, right? So if we see the logo plus a voiceover saying it, this works really, really great, right? It's a great, especially if you're measuring brand lift and you're doing an upper funnel campaign, works super, super powerful. Again, whilst this is not a checklist thing, it's the much more easier of the things to do, but definitely worthwhile trialing and testing. The next thing is about drawing on your branding assets, and I kind of touched on it 2 slides back. So what we've noticed on the platform is that if you overwhelm your ad with lots of logo all over the place, that can also cause skipping. And especially if you're not the kind of brand like Nike where you can overtly be loud about it. What we recommend is what I was saying to you earlier on, is utilizing all the tools and the tricks that you have that say that this is the brand. So it's your mnemonics, your mascots, your colors, and anything that says who you are without actually having to overtly constantly show your logo. Again, if you can't do it, the safest thing that you can do is then place the logo in the top right-hand corner. And then you've got my attention. You've branded in a way that's meaningful, right? And I think this is once you've got past those 2 bits there, you've got past the really hard bits. But this is the bit where a lot of people get challenged, is connection. How do you get me connected and get me to watch for longer periods of time? There's a study done in the United Kingdom where they looked at TV ads and they wanted to find out between rational ads that have a rational offering, like buy now, get now, versus ads that have more of an emotional pull, which one of those, which one of these types of ads is most likely to get engagements and perform well? The ones that performed the best were the ones that had an emotional offering. And the reason for this is for obvious reasons, right? We're more likely to remember anything that's got emotion. If you make us laugh, releases dopamines, we're going to remember that better. And the same goes for, just for general engagement, right? Because I remember it, I'm more likely to then act on what I've seen. So one of the most powerful things that you can do is using emotion, but on top of that, utilizing humans who look like me and you. This is an interesting one because it's a new one for us, right? Using people who look like everyday people has been seen to perform quite well. What's even more interesting on top of this is using a diverse audience works quite well also. Why? We're not quite sure. We're trying to figure out exactly what the reasons is, but it works really, really well. But on the flip side of it, what we've also noticed is that celebrities at the beginning of an ad are also a great way of driving people to watch past the 5-second mark. I don't know how you combine those two, but creatives, you'll figure it out, right? but a very, very interesting one on that front. The next one is then focusing on the message. Remember that you're working on digital. One message is always going to be much more impactful, right? If you're going to have a short video, like a 6-seconder to 15-seconder video, that's critical. It has to be just one message. Once you get longer, you can start playing with like subtle sub-messages, but they must link directly to that main message, and they must always link back. On digital, people, we can't afford to confuse people with lots and lots of pieces of information. And like I mentioned to you earlier on, the emotional story levers are very, very impactful. Now, I know that not all ads can be emotional, but something that works equally as powerful as emotion is suspense. And that's where the 5 seconds works quite nicely also. So if you open up with a compelling question or something that gets people intrigued, it's really, really powerful and gets people to watch for longer periods of time. Now, while we're in the connect phase, I just wanted to share with you a little rule which works really quite powerful when it comes to the connect phase. Remember that short is for remind. So short videos is for reminding, is for reach. Long is for changing minds. So this completely debunks the argument that you can't have short ads on YouTube. You can have an ad on YouTube that's 2 minutes long and will drive high consideration. So remember, short is for remind, long is for changing minds. Then the last one is direct. How do you direct people in a way that's meaningful and thoughtful? So the first one is we found that majority of the ads on YouTube don't have a call to action. Most importantly, if they do, they don't have a very clear one. What we recommend is that regardless of where you're on the funnel, to always have a call to action and always have one call to action. If you're at the bottom of the funnel, utilize a call to action specifically. If you're at the top of the funnel, use something that we call a call to explore. Call to explore is learn more, find out more. Call to action is buy now, get now. That's the much more stronger one. In the middle of the funnel, that's when you utilize a combination of both. The next one is supercharging your call to actions. If you're going to, with the audio, if you're going to use a voice, this is powerful, right? To say out your call to actions. This is one of those that I strongly recommend. But you're noticing one thing here is that a lot of the times we're saying that see and say is just super powerful. If I see it and you say it, it's great. So in summary, these are the ABCDs. A is for attract. How do you capture attention? B is for brand, and how do you brand in a meaningful and thoughtful way? C is for connection. How do you get me watching from beginning to the end? And then D is for direct. How do you direct me and get me to do what it is that you want me to do? But this can't be achieved if you're not testing. And it's easy for me to say that you must go ahead and test. I have to show you how to do it, right? So there's something called the audience retention curve. This can be found in Google Ads or in your YouTube page. And what it does is that from a second by second, it shows you the seconds of the video, and you can see how the people are reacting to your ad. So you can see here from the first 5 seconds, nobody is skipping, it's a flat line. After 5 seconds, they start dropping off. What makes this tool interesting is that you can start to see points where there's problems. So here on this specific video, there's actually a moment where the video spikes up. So people dropped off. Here, there's another drop-off. This is when I think the voiceover kicks in and gets very, very sales pitchy. Another drop-off here. What's nice about this is that you can take the video down and fix it because you can see the problems. But what's even more interesting that we're seeing here is we're seeing that people are launching their TV ads on YouTube to get this information. Then they're optimizing and putting it on TV. What that means is that we are all acknowledging that high-pitched volume and annoying voiceover is equally as annoying on TV as it is on YouTube. And this is why it's super powerful. The problem is the people who've got access to this most of the time is the media agencies. We need the creative agencies to also have access to this. We need the creatives to see this, because if you can see that this is what's happening with your assets, you can fix it. I just need to show you one more. This is what happens when you put a TV ad on YouTube. So you opened up with a beautiful Cape Town scene, driving up the hill, and then, bah, gone, right? So that's me. Thank you so much. That's the ABCDs. You are too kind. Thank you so much. All right, so something happened there. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to play this video again. While I'm playing it, Gwabna is going to come join us, and we're going to play a little game where there's going to be a couple of prizes.
Don't you hate it when you just get stuck? You try this, you try that. Nothing seems to work. You ask the internet. Nothing. You ask the internet again, but differently. Maybe you even ask an actual human. Nobody seems to know.
How can I get the help I need? I'm stumped.
That's how I was. And then I found the thing.
Looks like a box.
It's not. Well, it is a box, but that's not the thing. It's the thing. And the thing about the thing is it unsticks the stuck no matter how stuck you are.
I want one.
Of course you do. It's the thing.
Cool. So I hope you're paying attention. We are going to have a Kahoots. Now, you're all here because you survived the global pandemic, so well done. You're also here because you're in the creative industry, so these things mean that you've probably used a Kahoot a time or two. And if not, go to kahoot.it and all the information should be fairly straightforward. We lost my screen. So while I was doing that, I'm sure you're all going on your phones to jump on Kahoot.it. We're going to go through a couple of questions, I think 8 in total. They'll be based loosely on what Atwell's already gone through. So you should all be well versed on what we're looking for. There are prizes. We're looking for engagement. We're looking for high energy. And also, when you choose your names, like, make them interesting. Don't have boring names like Kobna. Like, you know, jazz it up. You're a creative industry. I want it to be reflected by the names that come up here. So if we'd like to hit start, then people can start loading up.
All right, the pin's going to kick in just now. I bet you weren't expecting a pop quiz, huh? All right,
If
go
I
ahead.
was anywhere near as good a teacher as you guys make out with your cheering and whooping, everyone should get prizes.
Make
so.
me look good, everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
The Prince, the new queen, controversial. I like that though. I like it bold. It's good.
Sneaky. Come on, Joby.
I mean, some of these.
You actually put your real name. Where are you?
There's some stories here, man.
Come on, Joby. At least Joby won
Nats.
Kenobi. That would have been cool.
Marilyn Monroe's made a comeback.
Uncle Pancakes. Yeah, no, that definitely.
yeah, that's a good one.
That rocks,
I
yeah.
like that.
Who's Joby's boss? That's hilarious. Are you on the? Do you want the password? For the Wi-Fi, you sorted. Okay. Miss SA. Nice. Marilyn Monroe. Dig it.
You guys have really understood the brief, which would make sense, to be honest, but yeah.
Is everybody on? Okay, we'll give you a few more seconds.
As soon as we have to wait longest for your name, it needs to be amazing when it comes on. No pressure.
No pressure at all.
Yeah. I do wish Kahoot had different music though.
Yeah, I guess it's okay.
There's a lot more that could be done with this.
I think that the last Kahoot I held, somebody had a really clever name, well, to them, and it
To
was I Love Instagram. I was like, really? This is
I Love
a
Instagram.
YouTube event.
You're good, I would have kicked them right out.
Are you still struggling? Are you good?
We're having more and more people in like jumping up here.
Alright. Almost there. Okay, we're gonna have to start in like 10 seconds.
Wait for this one last name, it's like the height of inclusivity. This is great.
I think we're gonna have to start because we're running out of time. Yeah, you guys, you can share if you win the prizes. There we go.
All right. Cool. So ready to hit start?
Are we good?
You good? Are you in?
All right. Amazing.
Just in the nick of time. So we're gonna kick off with a warm-up question. I think it's gonna be really obvious that I didn't write these questions. So I'm gonna start off with this poll. Finish the sentence. This little chap is adorable, too cute, magnificent, amazing. Please pick the right answer.
There
guys.
is no wrong answer here.
Oh gosh.
I'm loving it. Well done,
Right.
everybody.
Yeah. Well, at least we know how Kahoot works now. So, what is one of the reasons that people skip this advert? Video starts with a hook. Video is not framed for mobile. Video features less than 3 people. Video starts with no hook.
18 seconds.
There are wrong answers in this question, by the way. So.
Five, 4, 3. There we go.
Video starts.
Okay,
with
it's
no
amazing. I did a good job, man.
Yeah, you did it. You did it. You did okay. You did it okay. So, who got that right? And trust me, if you lie about it, it's gonna come on the next screen. So, lovely lady in the hat. Just put your hand up. You get it right. Cool.
The new
so,
queen.
could you describe to me what a good hook is?
You get a prize, even if
You
you
get a
guess,
prize, yeah.
even if you get it wrong.
No pressure. Just this lady with the hat here.
Let me just.
At least you're making notes. I like that. I like that. That's good.
I'll give you an example. Anything that's exciting. In fact, you can just repeat what I said.
So I noted so many things. I actually noted like colors, contrast, and all of that.
Okay.
But I think a good hook is putting something there that's very interesting, like a baby, like,
Yeah.
you know, something that would actually capture.
You have been to the Artwork School of YouTube. A very avid student.
Thank you.
Give that person a
Yes,
prize.
yes. Give that one a prize.
Nice. So, for this specific ad, they talk about the thing, and they've got this box that they show us at the end, right? Do you believe that by bringing this box up front would be a stronger hook than how they started? Give this person a prize. So go to the next one. True or false? The branding appears only at 26 seconds. Is this good creative best practice? So the first time that he mentions the thing, which is the brand, it's only at 26 seconds. Yes, let's not forget the prize here. All right,
It's
7
like 2 years
seconds.
to get on the Kahoot.
All right, amazing. Okay, so who got it right? At the back there. All right, why? I mean, not why. How would they better have done this? Should they put the branding right at the end, or should they put it? Give that person a prize. Don't forget this. Don't forget the prize here also. And at the back there.
I'm really interested on who got it wrong. Can we talk or we? This is a safe place, you know. Make mistakes in here so you don't make them out there. It's fine. It's fine. Okay.
Mrs. A, doing well.
Let's see if she'll stay there. Next, please. Finish the sentence. The pace of the advert will drive people nuts. Will drive people to watch the ad longer. Will drive people to skip the ad. Will drive people to purchase. This is actually one of your harder ones, actually, to be honest. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like you put a little bit of effort into this one.
I can't just be giving away free things. They have to be earned. Oh, this is amazing. I am doing so well, man.
Okay. So look, we have a skip button. It's like one of the most famous things on YouTube, but there's a lot that can be achieved in those first 5 seconds, right? So on the retention curve, we saw how quickly it drops off. What do you think are? Give me 2 things you can do in your first 5 seconds to keep people engaged. Let's see, someone who got it right. Who got it right? Yes. You wanna hand your mic? Makes professional, gives you gravitas. Grab that mic and yep, do it.
You can speed up the pace or you can build some suspense.
Suspense.
Yeah.
Suspense is a good one. Yeah, it doesn't actually get raised very often, but I think suspense is really good. I think it's a bit like a Quentin Tarantino movie. Like if you chop it around and put the back at the front and blah blah, but make it really engaging initially, people are hooked in and they want to see what happens next. So suspense is a really good one. That's a good one. Give that lady a prize. Please.
I'm gonna tag onto his question, and I'm gonna see if anybody has another version that we can capture. There we go, down there. He's your friend. This feels like.
Never seen in my life.
Feels like you guys planned this.
I don't know what.
And you guys look the same also.
Oh yeah, all bald guys with glasses in the same mark, bro.
Go ahead.
Unbelievable.
You can use supers or like subtitles.
Give that person a prize. Nobody's.
I didn't tell him that, but yeah, well done. Good answer.
So he's right? Because you wanna. When you do see and say, it's a great way of multiplying that performance of people remembering those specific points. So fantastic. Okay, so BH is up in the lead. Miss SA seems to have disappeared into the ether.
Oh, Marilyn.
Where's Marilyn? Oh, I'm assuming that's you, right? All right. We'll keep an eye out for Marilyn then. Next one. All right, the ad features a clear call to action. True or false? So at the end of the ad, did you feel like, I know what I need to do next? I'm nailing it today. All right, yes, it doesn't feature a clear call to action. It pretty much just ends like a lot of ads that we see today. You assume that you've told everybody what they need to know, they'll figure out the rest. We need to be much more intentional about call to actions. So there's a lot of you who got it right. I'm hoping these 3 people are brave. Who got it wrong? No, you couldn't have got it wrong. Okay. Okay, this is great because he's one of our panelists.
Classic.
So he might have a good one. Let's hear it.
So I think call to actions are relative, right? Depending on what you're doing. Let's just say, now bear with me to my media friends, is that your objective is reach, right? Not engagement. So you bought that ad unit based on a specific objective. So your call to action is engage, and you're not obviously speaking to an engagement audience. Sorry, let me rephrase it. If you're trying to access reach and your audience is engaging, they're not going to engage. So your call to action is null and void. So technically, in this case, if your objective is reach, you've reached them with a message about this thing. Full stop.
I think that's an amazing point. Very, very strong. And you're actually correct to a certain extent, especially on the shorter videos, like bumpers and the likes. But we've actually found that even on reach ones, to have a call to explore or something, that's just almost as like a primer for what could happen next. And that's why we don't call specifically for hard call to actions like buy now, get now. But you are correct, especially when you're saying the relative. But give him a prize.
Got to ask the question.
Go ahead.
Who got it right?
I mean, you've won a prize already.
Can we give this lady here the microphone, please? Yeah. You had your hand up and it got really surprised when I pointed at you. Like, who, me? Yeah, you. If you could give me one example of a call to action and one example of a call to explore, please.
A call to action could be sign up, and then a call to explore could be like learn more or find out more.
Amazing.
One of your best students, man. Give this lady a prize. Let's see how the leaderboard has changed.
So BH has dropped. Marilyn Monroe is gone. Sam. Daniel, nice one. And Mosi is climbing up. All right. Let's go to the next one, number 6. Where are 70% of people watching YouTube? Is it on mobile devices? Is it on laptops? Is it on connected TVs? Is it at home? Well done. Okay, I'm really nailing it today.
This is your real peak.
It is. Question, right? You all got it right, so who wants to answer the question? Because it's pointless just asking who got it right. Anybody? That's the part. I want to catch you out. Okay, there, at the back.
Yes, what's your question?
Okay, I'm trying to see who it is. It's Joby. Okay, all right, cool. Joby.
First of all, who's my boss in this room? I'm trying to figure that out. Oh, it's you! We need to talk about my package after this.
So Joby, because we built for mobile devices, name one thing that is important to do when you're editing for mobile devices.
Oh, make sure your grade is not too dark.
Love it. Give that man a prize. All right. Cool. Should we go to the next one? Courtney, you're in the lead. Let's go.
What percentage of brand sales lift comes from creative? Is it 49%, 39%, 99%, 59%? I mean, this is the easiest. No pressure. I don't want anyone to get it wrong. Someone say I already did. Oh, sad state of affairs.
I mean, that image should kind of tell you.
Oh, well, if a single person gets this wrong.
I know.
It's a massive reflection on your ability to teach us.
Nice.
Wow, 59%.
Okay, well, no, this is okay. The one I was looking for was 99%. If somebody had said 99%, that would have been. But the other ones, it's okay. I mean, it's the 3 people got it wrong. It's fine. Go ahead.
You're just patting yourself on the back. It's ridiculous. So look, creative is one of the last few unfair advantages that we can have in marketing. You buy your media space, and then it's about what you do with that space. Make sure that when people come there, they can engage with you, tell a story in a really engaging and interesting and creative way, and that's what keeps them around. I want to ask you guys, if you had to pick one of the ABCDs that you think is most impactful for the work that you do, or your particular client, business, whatever it is, what would that be? Let's see, who got it right? Anyone?
Daniel?
Yeah. Pass him the mic.
Yeah, I would say the attention is one of the most important. I mean, it's the first one, but it is important. If you lose them there, then you lose them. They're gone after 5 seconds. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Good point. Can you please give that man a prize?
So I think that, if you're not doing the A bits, I mean, what's the point of doing anything else, right? If you're going to get skipped, if you don't put that effort, and I think the biggest challenge that I see is that need to open up with those beautiful opening scenes, and setting up the character and all that stuff, and that really hurts performance. So yes, good point, and thank you for that. All right, so let's go. I think this is the last question. Courtney's leading. Marilyn has come back on the frame. So whoever Courtney is,
if DH nails this, can win the whole thing. Yes. It'll be the greatest comeback story since Rocky. So let's do that.
Let's go to the next one. So this is the last one. The ABCDs are: 1, creative must-haves; 2, creative recommendations; 3, a checklist; last one, rules. You don't get prizes in a learner's test. All right. Amazing. Okay, so I think let's just clarify for the ones who said must have and rules and such. So again, purely recommendations, right? You can use what you want to use. It's really about finding what works for you. It's about taking all those little data points that we found and making them work for yourself. So purely recommendations, and at no point do we want clients making checkpoints when they're approving, and we don't want creative leaders to do the same thing for their teams. So recommendations all the way. So who got it right? Amazing. So what I'm going to do for who got it right? I'm trying to find the people who got right who hasn't got a prize. Oh, yeah. All right. So, Toinette, the thing is that she's a client and we work solid. She knows pretty much everything. So I need to find. Do you have a difficult
Well,
question?
she nailed it because she used the attention there, right? Everyone's like, oh, she's like, me. So I feel like
So
she
she
should get a prize just for
captured.
that. But I guess, how do you see the difference between creative recommendations and creative must-haves, and how does that impact your decision-making when building creative for YouTube?
Love it.
Obviously, that's such a long question.
I mean, it is. It is.
For you, it has to be.
But I gave it relative to your ability. So it's a compliment, really.
Please repeat the question.
What do you think are the key differences between a creative recommendation versus a creative must-have, and how does it impact the decisions you make while making creative for YouTube?
I think the
Wow.
recommendations help in giving the steer, and then also just we test a lot to also give guidance on what works and doesn't work. The must-haves is like obviously CI and stuff like that. That's must-haves that we always have in brand.
See, and you pretended like you didn't know. Give this woman a prize. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right. So let's see who the final winner is.
So in third place,
Marilyn Monroe.
Courtney.
Daniel. All right. So for the first prize, there is a different prize, which Daniel, can you put up your hand so that they can see you and they can give you the...
He's got both hands amazing. He really wants that prize.
And I think for Courtney and Marilyn Monroe, maybe we can just give them like one of the swags that we have there just as a well done. Amazing. Can you switch us back onto the presentation?
Thank you for doing that. But thank you very much for your engagement. Really appreciate it. Now we are going to have a panel discussion where we will hear from some of our leading experts in the industry, but also some of our experts here at Google. We'll talk a little bit about why we love YouTube, the impact it's making, how we can optimize creative for the platform, and how we can succeed. So let's get some chairs pulled out before I can welcome those panelists up onto the stage.
So I think while we're waiting for the chairs, I just want to open up the floor to any questions on the ABCDs. Was there any questions, any comments that you want to ask? Thanks.
Question there?
Is that TJ?
Yeah.
Ah, hello.
What up?
Good, good.
Is this a collection of Art Wars friends? Like, what is this? Okay, fine. TJ.
Pretty much. He just invited us.
Yeah,
in
I
the
can see
circle.
that. It's the Art Wars show.
Yeah, I've got a question with regards to, let's say that first 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. And branding particularly. Yeah. Because I suppose my question is a question of distinction. Yeah? And say you have a brand within a particular category. Yeah? The number one distinctive, well, not number one distinctive, one of the ways that a brand can be distinct is obviously the CI and the look and feel and all of that stuff. But how do you ensure distinction within what the brands are saying as well, right? So if everyone is doing the same thing, then how do you stand out from the competition?
Yeah.
That's the first question.
That's a great question. Can I answer that while the answer's in the head? So the thing is, if we look at like the structures right now, not a lot of people are doing the branding thing, but the reality is when everybody starts doing it, we're gonna reach that same equilibrium, and then we're gonna have to find more data to find, because that's just the way it is, right? We're gonna find more compelling ways and more interesting ways, but also remember that how you brand up front, it can also be very unique, right? Because it's about finding your branding elements that work well. Like I said, with Nike, they can use the shortcut, whereas Comandi Porto can't, right? Yeah. But once everybody starts doing it, then it loses its effectiveness. Then we need to find. But right now, not a lot of people are doing that at all. Actually, even like the things like See and Say, Very few people are doing that. Call to actions. The number is less than 20% of the videos all on YouTube. Less than 20%. I'm even talking performance videos, right? So there's lots of opportunity for now.
Okay, word. Then the second question
Yeah.
is, okay, when we talk about branding, and I mean, I'm asking the question so that the answer can be said. When we're talking about branding, right, you know, most brands have the logo, they have a payoff line,
Yeah.
they have a campaign line, right?
Yeah.
That's already 10 seconds.
Yeah.
When you're talking about, let's say, front loading, for example. Or even if you're doing, let's say, a 6-second bumper, and you have logo, campaign line, payoff line, and that's the ad done,
Yeah.
right? When we're talking about being singular in your messaging, is it more about what would benefit the audience, or what the person would find interesting, or what is the message? What can it be? The kinds of things.
So I don't think I think that's a test and learn question. And I think it's going to be different for every single client. I don't think there's a one-off answer for that. But it's definitely, I mean, the answer I can give you is to test and learn and test different iterations. Use the audience retention curve and use all the other tools that we have to find the answers. Because something like that is much more nuanced, especially when you know, with different clients and also different verticals. For finance, it would be completely different than for entertainment. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Cool, I think we can get started.
Yeah, sure. So I'd like to invite Ryan, Chris, Zanele, and Artwork here onto the stage, please. Coming up, guys.
There's another.
Ryan, where do you want us?
So wherever you're comfortable, man. Wherever you're comfortable.
Hi.
Cool. So thanks for being here, guys. So I really wanted to rebrand this section as Quabna's Creative Corner, but I got overruled by Artwell. So it's just a panel discussion. But I'm going to open up by asking you each to introduce yourselves from Chris onwards. Just give me just an outline of, you know, what you do, where you do it, and don't be humble, guys. You're here because you're experts, right? So if you've got those awards and you've got those 17 years experience, like, tell us about it. We want to hear it. So let's go.
Cool. Well, hi, I'm Chris Potter. I head up all the digital creative for Outsurance. Funnily enough, 17 years of experience. You hit the nail on the head. And yeah, I got some awards along the way, but I get to irritate South Africa with lots of advertising. So, yeah. But it works.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Zanele. I'm the YouTube lead for the Africa region. Work very closely with Artwell and Quabna. So essentially, I support the sales team on all things YouTube sales and drive their strategy. I work across multiple verticals. And yeah, it's interesting how different verticals do their work and the different types of assets that they drive.
I love it. You all know who I am. I am Artwell, and I do the creative for for Google. And I've been with the company for 4 years, and I was adorable when I was 7 years old, as you already know. I'm not going to let that slide. That's my achievement in life.
I'm Ryan van Son. I'm a digital CD at Wunderman Thompson Digital, and currently my role pretty much encompasses BMW South Africa and the digital arm of Cadbury's. And I love my job, and I'm happily wax lyrical on how much I enjoy that with anyone who's kind of or prepared to listen. So, perfect spot to be in.
So our esteemed panel, thank you very much. Ryan, I want to start with you. 2 questions. What was the last YouTube video you watched, and what's your favorite of all time?
I think I'm a bit of an anomaly because I'm a YouTube Premium subscriber, so I don't get ads.
Check you out, Ryan.
So it's quite interesting, but I think that kind of speaks to kind of my approach on the platform. The last thing I watched was a guy called, or his channel's called StanceWorks, and he's into cars, and he's currently retrofitting a turbo Honda Civic Type R engine into a 308 Ferrari. And it's all kind of fab work with his hands. That's a big aspect of what I do when I'm not doing digital work. I'm on my bikes, I work on my bikes, so I really love that kind of engineering aspect of things, because an engine and a gearbox can only work one way, whereas what we're talking about today can be a multitude of ways. So it's a nice kind of solace from the industry to go and do something finite. So yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
I look at a lot of stuff, but I mean, if we look at ads in particular, I still think, like, for me, what broke the internet was an ad from a few years ago, which was Dumb Ways to Die, and it was just so ridiculous. And to this day, it's still an absolute earworm. And there's very few ads that I can say do that, particularly for what its function was. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's my two.
Chris, same questions to you. So the last video you watched on YouTube and your favorite of all time.
Okay, so the last video I watched was this morning while I was doing my business, like you mentioned earlier. I follow a poker vlogger called Brad Owen, so I was just watching his blog, getting some tips so I can, pretend to be a poker player in my spare time.
Yeah.
I think my favorite YouTube videos go back a couple years. There's two I want to mention. There was one called Aisha, which was by a guy called Gilliman, and it was a really pathetic music video that was self-produced, singing about heartbreak, and that was really funny. And another one was also a music video called My Hands Are Bananas. So I would, if you haven't seen any of those, I'd suggest to watch them immediately.
My Hands Are Bananas. Yeah. I'm not going to be forgetting that anytime soon. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So, Ryan, I think I'll start with you. We're here as a media platform, right? But we're very big proponents of creativity and its impact and how you can convey messages and storytelling. I wanted to ask, how do you feel the relationship between creative and media has evolved over time?
So I think there's always a bit of tension between us, but that's good. I think the primary thing is nowadays is all about collaboration, and to do things in a civil way. I think creatives get a bit irritated when there's YouTube rules and media's coming with ideas, and creatives don't really like that. But I try and embrace that as often as I can, to have a lot of healthy conversations, because if you work in silos and you aren't on the same page, you're not going to get the message across to the right people. So it's absolutely imperative that you put your pride in your pocket sometimes and have robust conversations as soon as you can. Pretty much.
Okay, good. Chris, same to you.
Yeah, I think those initial conversations are vital. I'm in a very privileged position to have our heads of media about 5 meters away from my desk. So we work collaboratively, I can't speak anymore, collaboratively every single day. And I mean, they have just as much input in creative as we do, and vice versa in the media side. So yeah, it boils down to just getting together earlier. And I think that's always tough for agencies when you're sharing clients from a media and creative point of view.
Cool. So Zanella, I want to talk to you about how we can build creative, I guess, and what we can tap into from a TV Plus perspective for those campaigns. So if you want to give us a quick outline of the thinking behind TV Plus, and then how creative can be optimized to take advantage of that.
Sure. So the concept around TV Plus is really integrating the two, and the reason for that is because we cannot run away from the fact that media consumption is changing. And as an advertiser, you won't necessarily reach everyone on TV anymore. We know that ratings are dropping. We know that CPMs are also changing. So it's quite important for media and advertisers to start extending their reach beyond TV. And there's multiple ways of doing it. And I think with TV, we know that you have a 30-seconder. YouTube gives you an opportunity to try different objectives. And even from a measurement point of view, I think Artwell covered it earlier on, how with YouTube it's quite instinctively where you're able to get your insights immediately, and those can help you influence your TV strategy. So it's really about using the two, using the concept around both of them. I think in many instances we always compare YouTube and TV as if they enemies, and I think more than anything they actually can complement each other in extending your reach.
Thank you. So in terms of extending your reach and maximizing the opportunity, the ABCDs play a massive role in doing so. And well, we all know how passionate you are about your ABCDs. You invite all your friends down to talk about it. You know, you included baby pictures. So thanks for sharing that stuff. But what I'd like to ask you a little bit more is to elaborate on why it's so important to build for the platform rather than just using like a TV asset. Because, you know, you did point out some reasons as to why, but that's the easy route, right? And
yeah, I think, you know, the challenge, and we can't ignore it as people who work at YouTube, is there's a much more bigger ecosystem than just the person who creates the ad, right? There's the director who's used to shooting in a specific way. There's the creative who's used to creating in a specific way. There's the editor who's used to editing in a specific way. And so the reason why we don't say shoot for YouTube, which would be amazing if you could, is because of that, right? What we're saying is then take the end bit, the editing bit, and then just optimize for the platform. Why that's important is that you're not you're using our platform to its best way possible, and you know, even our competitors, they'll tell you the same thing, right? You want to build and use it for the best way possible, but what's most important is when you build it for the best way possible, you can then measure effectiveness, and you can use that measurement to optimize for TV going forward. What's even more interesting is that you are able to, you can take a YouTube ad that's optimized for YouTube and put it on TV and it will work, but you can't do it the other way around. So rather do it the other way around than do it the one way. But you know, it's almost business critical, especially if you're doing things that you want to measure, that you optimize for the platform you're building for.
so it's been well documented that we're in a period of austerity, right? And for various reasons, which I won't go into, budgets are becoming tightened, and people need to be more nimble and agile in the way they create content for all their channels. So for those who don't perhaps have the resources to shoot for YouTube in particular, what are some of the ways in which we can help them build that kind of content in-house?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So,
oh well, this whole thing is about you. So yeah.
So there are definitely a couple of tools that can be used. The first one is Video Builder, and the Video Builder is really for clients that don't have the resources to have a creative agency. It's very basic. When I say basic, it's ultra basic, right? You're not going to get the level of a creative agency by any means. It's very much quite still and moving. But if you want to create a bumper and get it out, and you're a small organization, it's a company of 3 or 4 people, I mean, you know, that's the tool to use. We also have Ads Creative Studio, which is new, but here you do need a creative agency. But what's nice about it is that everything is very insertion-wise. You still need a concept and you need all those things, but what you can do is you can create, the creative agency will create one video, and then the creative agency themselves can create 200 versions of this video with different iterations speaking to different people. We call it direct-to-mix. So you can start to make personalized messages, right? So you can imagine a Komandi board advert, and the men will get this version, the young people get this version, the women will get this kind of version. So those kinds of tools also help creative agencies not to spend too much time making 250 versions of a video, but you can make one asset. But Video Ads Builder is a really strong one. Another one is called Bumper Machine. If you already have a video asset and you just don't have time to cut it down to 6 seconds, this uses an algorithm and cuts it down for you. It sounds like you know, wizardry and magic, but sometimes a lot of the times the algorithm gets it wrong, but when it does get it right, it saves you a whole lot of time because it literally cuts down your video in the space of 30 seconds. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Chris, I want to ask, how has YouTube changed the way you look at production?
Yeah, also, if you haven't watched TV before, I'll tell you that we make a lot of TV ads, quite prolifically. And I think our journey started with YouTube, where we would, you know, run TV ads as is on YouTube, and then we soon got a talking to from Artwell. Yeah. So I think the first thing for us, the big learning, was how to edit, you know, TV stuff. But now we've brought extra content teams onto our shoots. We're actually shooting for specific platforms, YouTube being one of them. And it's even changing some of the ways we edit TV stuff. But certainly just getting the right people on the shoot and optimizing that shoot process, that's how it's changed. And you know, the way we do things like titling and calls to action and things like that, it's had a big influence.
So, Zanele, you're a format expert and you have great knowledge of how they work in different ways. What advice would you give people in developing choosing the right format mix for their creatives and the different impacts that they have?
I think what's important is understanding that there's definitely different formats for different objectives, right? So if you're driving an awareness campaign, you'll definitely be using your 30-seconders and your 6-seconders. If you're driving consideration, one of the things that you'd want to measure is engagement, right? And then if you're driving a performance-based campaign, you actually want to use video action campaign that has a particular call to action. And this is quite important because we sometimes see where a client is running an awareness campaign, but they actually want to measure conversion. And because of the structure of the format and how you'll be able to measure it afterwards, it's quite important to make sure that the two are aligned. So every single time, whenever we start with a campaign, it's quite important to say, what is my objective? Am I looking at reach? Am I looking at engagement? Am I looking at performance? And then from there, from the funnel of formats that are available, you then select the right format for the right objective.
Oh, that's good. So I guess as a follow-up question, campaigns are now expected to do so much over a long period of time. Right? Do you think that there's a formula to phasing that? So maybe is it all about focusing on raising awareness initially and then conversion later on? Like, do you see that as something that we can build and evolve over time on YouTube? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, even if you're driving just an awareness campaign, what YouTube allows you to do is to swap, the different formats or the different assets that you may run. And looking back at audience retention, using that as a way of understanding exactly how is that performing, right? So there's different ways of doing it, just not by only looking at that, but also looking at other formats like video ad sequencing. What video ad sequencing allows you to do, I think Artwell just touched on it now, is that you're able to tell your story beyond just using one asset. So you have a different level that you want to convey at that particular time. And not only that, but it also gives you an opportunity to talk to someone that may have not been engaged the first time. And you structure it and say, if this person is skipped, this is a type of a messaging that I want to show. So those are some of the things that are quite important because, again, going back to the TV Plus aspect, I think it also extends your TV asset because on a YouTube platform, you're able to tell the story beyond just using one format and telling it in different ways.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So, Ryan, when we're thinking about storytelling and the different ways we can do it, right, this has evolved massively over time. With your experience in the industry, I'm sure you've seen many stories told many different ways. But I'd like to get your thoughts on how storytelling has evolved specifically in the YouTube space, both in like your experience of what things you've done, but also other things you may have seen that have inspired you.
I think it comes down to choices. I'm lucky enough to have worked on big brands that have a lot of budget to do A/B testing and see kind of what works, then be agile to try something different. But I mean, particularly we think about bumpers and storytelling, and TrueView with a 30-seconder. Like, you cannot tell that story in 6 seconds. So then I kind of revert back to, well, what's my idea? Like, what assets do I have that I can really be effective in 6 seconds? So BMW, we're lucky in that from a branding perspective, yes, we have the logo. We also have a kidney grill. And we also have equity built in, like the old E30, the Gusheshe. So we can then have that up front to ensure that we're garnering that attention. So I think storytelling is relative in certain areas. Like, sometimes you have the luxury of that time to tell a cohesive story, but more often than not, you don't. Our attention spans are so minimal. I mean, we know we're competing with other platforms, we're competing with friends, God forbid. So, like, when it comes to telling a story, you need to land something with immediacy. And I don't know if what you asked Chris earlier around how the production aspects is kind of kicked off is I've even started to kind of use some of these principles in more traditional out of home. So, for example, we get some media buys with a 30-second commercial spot on a piece of digital out of home. Like, we know someone's driving. A bumper principle applies. You don't have the luxury of 30 seconds to garner someone's attention while they're driving past. So then I said, well, let's cut it up effectively. Like, let's take the bumper principle, divide that up into like a similar time frame, and then I can have 30 seconds with different aspects of media or different assets within that, different messages, obviously part of our campaign, to do just that job. So I'm not taking 30 seconds as is. I'm applying TV principles, YouTube principles, and a bit of logic to ensure that I'm doing the best I can for my client.
Yeah. And think you working on BMW, BMW Anywhere was a great campaign. I think it would be great for you to talk a little bit about how data has impacted the way you make some of your creative decisions and how you can leverage the information that we have as part of the Google ecosystem to help mean that you're meeting the right people in the right spaces, talking to them in a language that they understand.
So that campaign was really successful, but also it forced us to be really nimble. So when that kicked off, it was literally 2 weeks before lockdown happened. And I think it's important to note that when that campaign started, it was a 360 campaign. And the media house is Visium, and we had many conversations around how to target accordingly, whether it was on digital or in traditional. And I wanted points of interest. So, and the reason I said points of interest, because points of interest in the real world and digital world are still points of interest. Like we talk about audience interests, you know, if it's soccer or cricket, whatever it is, or motoring. So that also applies to the real world. So for example, I asked them to buy me out-of-home spots around competitors and or points of interest. So around Audi, and we'd have messaging accordingly, which we did, and we had a few legal letters from them. But the message was great, and it was well received. But then all those traditional spots were null and void with lockdown. So then what we said, like, well, obviously we're moving all of that out-of-home spend into digital. So that meant a lot of tense times, because now it's lockdown, you can't shoot, so what do? So what we then did is we then leaned on our data to see what people's habits were. So the irony is, you can't travel, so we serve them travel messages. So people are searching at, that's their behaviors. You have to serve the messaging based on their interests. And like, for example, like the line was, you can buy BMW before chicken or beef. Little 6-second bumper. We had to use stock photography because we couldn't shoot, so we had to be nimble and make choices. And we had a whole bunch of different interests that we could then write lines accordingly. And then it wasn't a perfect world because we couldn't go and shoot, so you had to animate and again make choices around what you have available to you.
It's very smart campaign. I think when we are looking at the way advertising is evolving, it's meaning that we're having to explore channels that weren't always part of our mix. So Chris, we spoke earlier this week about how YouTube is becoming an increasing part of your media mix. I just wanted to know what's been driving this change, how easy has it been to implement at the company, and where you see the future?
So, well, I think the answer is obvious why YouTube's important. I think we've all seen the declining numbers on TV, and that's something we measure on a minute by minute. We have the luxury of having real-time data. So we obviously want to find audiences. So I think the answer is quite simple there. I think it's been an easy sell in terms of selling YouTube to the business. I think it's obviously a growing thing, and we're still learning all the time. But like I say, if we find the audience and it works, and we overlay our data with the data we get from Google, and it makes sense, it's a no-brainer. If it's a data-driven decision, then it's easy.
I guess, when the numbers on there, they say men will lie, women lie, numbers don't. So if that's the kind of thing that's driving that decision making. It would be interesting to see, are there things that you'd like to achieve on YouTube that you've yet to try or explore?
Yeah, well, I think we're very performance driven. So we want to get people to call us or to go to our website to load a lead. But I think where I'm excited is in our brand space. So we get to tell really authentic stories with real clients, majority of the time. So I'm really keen on pushing that on YouTube and really looking at a different metric and really just getting our brand message out there or reinstilling that brand message. So that's where I'm excited. But the performance stuff will always be there. And if we can prove a channel or a platform with that, then the sky's the limit.
So Ryan, I know you're very passionate about brand storytelling, right, and how that looks and how effective that is as we move forward. But are there things in that space as it pertains to YouTube that you're yet to try, that you'd like to explore?
I think you have to try things. Data is only as good as how you interpret it. So if there are certain trends that are happening, we need to kind of look at that, overlay the data, look at the business needs. And try things. If you don't try it, you're not going to figure out if it works or not. So storytelling, again, is relative to how much time you have to tell that story. So again, choices around every single corner.
Okay, just before we get into Q&A with the audience, I want to ask you, all four of you. So I'll start with Zanele. What do you think is the best thing about YouTube for our, both our audiences, but also for our clients and partners? What's the best thing about YouTube?
I think getting immediate results and understanding exactly how your campaign is performing or how your asset is performing, where you don't have to wait until the end of the campaign and you're able to see exactly what's happening. If you look at YouTube Studio, YouTube Analytics as an example, you might design an asset to say it's going to attract X, and then you look at the data, it's showing you something that's different. So that will already inform your decision, already inform how you're going to build your ad in the future. So I think for me, it's definitely the immediate results that you're able to get.
Okay, cool. Artwell, best thing about
She took my one. Okay, so flexibility from a creative point of view. In fact, I'd even change flexibility to new opportunities from a creative point of view. So the fact that you can tell sequential stories, right? So today I'll see the beginning of an ad, tomorrow I'll see another part of the ad, and if I skip, I'll see another version versus the person who doesn't skip. There's those kind of flexibilities. I can serve personalized messages to people who've got different interests. There's lots of flexibility that allows for conceptually amazing stuff, right? And we've seen some amazing campaigns where people, there's a Mercedes-Benz one where they were highlighting how fast the car can go within 6 seconds, and they used the bumper. Which was really clever, right? And you get like a real-time experience of that creative flexibility. And I think what's nice about that is that it challenges us as creatives to constantly find new ways, because digital itself is constantly finding new ways to amplify creative. Yeah.
Cool. Chris, best thing about working on YouTube?
Yeah, it's very much similar answer there. I think it's about presenting what the platform can give us and creating those challenges for ourselves creatively and just answering that. So that's kind of a combo of both of their answers. Also, the real-time data is obviously very important from our point of view. But then I think, for me, I think what I'm excited about is taking this YouTube journey a bit further and speaking to content creators themselves and seeing how our brand can align with them. So that's what excites me about the future. So it's not just the platform, it's the people that are contributing to the platform from a non-advertising point of view.
Creators are definitely the lifeline of what we do. Like, without them, YouTube is nothing. So finding ways to engage with them and to tell stories. I always think that working with creators is a bit of a cheat code, right? Because they constantly build content for the audience. They know what they like. They know the length of videos that they like, when to peak, when to bring it down. So working and creating content bespoke for them is a really, really rich territory. So Ryan, how about you?
So all of the above. I think all of these tools like around retargeting are obviously very, very, very important. But I like to kind of take a step back and to look at credibility of the data.
Okay.
You think about how long YouTube has been around for, but broader than that, what YouTube is, or at least who it's part of, it's Google, right? So within that comes a huge amount of data. You think about your Google account. You sign in to Gmail, you sign into Chrome, you think about your day-to-day apps. That's all data that other platforms don't have. So, largely users are guinea pigs. Like, our data is there to be utilized. So I think that's where I look at Google, and I appreciate the effort that they've gone into to give me really, really accurate data. So when it comes to retargeting, I'm retargeting the exact audience based on if they've skipped, if they've engaged, who's my audience? Is it a reach audience? Is it an engagement audience? There's so much more, and I think that credibility is I think enviable to a lot of your competitors. And that's why, I drink the Kool-Aid. I love what the ABCs have to say. And make no mistake, there are guides. You need to look at what's good for the brand, what's good for the media, what's good for the budget, and make decisions. I'm a convert, as you can tell.
It's good. I think the fact that none of you said working with me was it was humbling. I've learned some things. So I guess for both Chris and Ryan, I'll start with you, Chris. What would you like to see more of from the platform?
Well, I've got a personal view and then a work view. I'll start with a personal one. If you guys can buy the rights to the rugby so I can watch watch the rugby on YouTube, that'll be great. Look, and I think, like I said before, it's about creating innovative ad units within the creator's content. And I think a creator talking about your brand is one thing, but I think there's some room for innovation there. Maybe it's different kinds of ad units within that. I just don't want people to skip ahead in an ad. So I think that's, not in a piece of content. Sorry, not an ad. So I think there's some innovation there, and I'd love to see where that goes. And then I've also got another suggestion. I would love it if not only was there a skip button, but maybe a remind me later button.
Okay.
I think that would be neat as well, because sometimes you're desperate to get to that piece of content you want to consume. You might be slightly interested, but you still hit skip because you want to get to the content. So there might be a little remind me later kind of opportunity.
Noting it down.
It's a good suggestion. We're currently working on a beta in the UK and parts of EMEA, and working on how we make that shorten the journey between connected TV and our phones. So when people see an ad, they can click on the remind me thing or send the URL. So later on, they can click on and start exploring that, or go back to a product. Because so many times you were so intent on seeing whatever you want to see that it can be, oh, that's really cool, and then we forget to go back to it. With this one button, it can send you a bit of a jolt for your memory. But we'll definitely work on that, and if it gets made, we'll talk later about the royalties and all that. And how about you, Ryan? What would you like to see more from the platform?
So, I think from a content standpoint, I think we always think about content creators being, the influencers themselves, the people who actually produce the content. But I look at the likes of Google Labs and see what they're doing. And I think locally there's a massive need for that type of tech to be supported. I know we have challenges in South Africa, and one of them is the ability to code. So, for example, some of the Google Labs guys have developed where you can control AR via your browser. So there's no app required. It's just your browser and your camera. So I think that type of tech often run into dead ends, because who do we get to do this? Then you try and phone internationally, but we need that here. So I think that's where I would love to see the support from Google, is to see what we can do in SA to grow that, to ensure that this kind of tech bed, it just keeps going. Because I think content is content, great. There's a huge amount of competition in that space, but when it comes to tech, particularly Google Labs, there's so much that can be applied to SA.
Very good point. Very good point. You gonna add something, Chris? Oh, you agree?
Just agree. Yeah.
Look at that. Client, agency, just coming together, working as one. I'm gonna open to the floor right now. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand and we can pass you your mic. I'm currently blinded by the lights. If I don't see you, please don't be offended. Anyone with their hand up?
There you go.
Can't see. Oh, here in the.
There you go.
Yeah.
Artwell.
Oh yes.
This one's for you. Sorry. You mentioned the director mix a while back, and I know we were emailing about it a few months ago. And if I recall, the media spend associated with director mix is very high for South African brands, because I think obviously it originated out of the States. So as a result, for the brand we were talking about, it was prohibitive. Are there any plans for those kind of entry barriers to come, well, I'm calling them barriers, essentially, but to come down and make it a bit more accessible for South African brands?
Trust you to ask the hard questions, and it's perfectly fine. Actually, there's a good answer for that. So, Ads Creative Studio has just launched. We're kind of like trickling out the access to a lot of people to get it. But what that's going to allow is, beforehand when we had Direct to Mix, and just to give everybody context of Direct to Mix, it allows you to build personalized ads at scale, video ads. So think of how you make banners, and you can make hundreds of banners. You can do it with video also. But it's expensive from an entry-level point of view, from a media spend. So what Ads Creative Studio is going to do is, you're going to get different tiers now. So you'll still get the direct to mix levels, but you can choose to go for lower levels, right? Like if you just want to make 10 personalized videos, you will be able to do it with the same kind of effectiveness as direct to mix, but at a lower scale. And then you won't need all that Google support, which makes the cost quite high. And also you have the choice to do the 250 videos by yourself without, and not incur that cost also. So Ad Creative Studio also allows you to be able to do it. But remember, the reason why we we, like the likes of myself and Zanele and the director mix specialist, help you, is because if you're making 200 videos, we really want to make sure that we are supporting you and we help with the media, the way that you're splitting up the media spend from a how you're making the videos and all that stuff, so that you get the best results, because that spend is quite high. But if you don't have the spend, you can make 3 personalized videos with the same kind of vibe as direct mix. So there definitely are those solutions, and I'm happy to take you and the team through that tool.
Thank you.
Amazing.
And just to add on that as well, we actually have a couple of examples where brands have done that, where they take the framework of Director Mix and create 4 or 5, even 10 videos, just using bumpers as just different reiterations. So you don't have to do the 250, but you can apply the framework currently already as it stands.
Yes.
Thanks.
Perfect.
Have another question? Don't be scared.
I don't think there are any.
Oh,
yeah, another one.
Front.
It's got nothing to do with the fact that we're sitting together. So, from a tech side of things and finding efficiencies in tech that actually give us smarter marketing insights, right? And allow you guys to build up better creative, to speak to the consumer in a better way. I sit on media agency side, not creative agency side. And I can hear about these awesome things and I'm like, oh, this is so cool, this is so cool. And then I meet a creative agency and they go, say what now? Who? And then you sit with this awkward responsibility going, if I'm accountable to my client for the best performance, the creative agency needs to be looking at these tools, needs to be using these tools, needs to be onboarding them in their agency. Any recommendations how to have that really awkward conversation?
Do you know?
Do you want me to answer that?
I want to get 2 perspectives actually. I want to get Zanele's view on this, and then your view, I think. So let's start with Zanele, and then we'll come to you, right?
I think it's really about starting the conversation. I look at TV Plus as an example. It's a really complex process where you have the digital team working on one side, and you have the traditional team working on one side. It hasn't been an easy process, but what we started doing is that making sure from the onset you actually have the right type of people from the different aspects of the business who are going to drive that. So aligning, I think at the beginning, it's quite important, and upskilling, like you say, right? Because I think different teams also work with different tools. So if you have identified whatever campaign you're going to be doing and the certain tools that need to be looked at, let's also look at that as well, and work with us. We're very happy to be part of that process from the onset.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to make it Google's problem then.
It's our problem.
Our problem. Ryan, do you want to share your thoughts on?
I do. So I think dynamic content has been a buzzword for a number of years now. And I think my buzzword of the day was choices. And that is going to be one of those as well. So when you look at dynamic, you are going to sacrifice creative. But in what area? So for example, you can't have layered effects and very, very visual dynamic content when it comes to those type of automated processes. But what you can then do is embrace it for what it is. So you can then start to look at the data and start to retarget and ring fence, whether it's cities or crikey, I mean male, female, whatever your demographic is. But then you have the ability to kind of write copy accordingly. So you can still speak to them in a compelling way. Even it may not look as compelling, but at least that is a way to still be creative in a slightly different area. So have that conversation with the agency up front. So we mandated to use 75% of our budget on this dynamic content, and then just reinforce and kind of pander to the egos of the creatives. I mean, they are kind of little, weird creatures, but just have that conversation. So this is not going to win Cannes with regards to kind of craft, but what we can do is look at how we can win around data and being clever in messaging and then targeting and then retargeting and targeting again. So just have that conversation, but ego pandering is probably going to be part of it.
and perhaps do it before the brief comes in. Have
Yeah.
the conversation before that campaign brief. And I think it works both ways. Showcase the capabilities that are out there, and get the creatives thinking about that stuff before the brief comes in. I think that would be my suggestion, because then it'll come up.
I mean, Chris, I was going to ask you actually after Ryan, how has your approach to fostering these conversations changed in the time of being at Outsurance? Like,
well, like I said, we're all in the same building, so that really helps. But I mean, I remember the days back in my agency years where it was tough because there was a finite amount of time, potentially some egos, and it was sometimes a struggle to get everyone on the same page from that kickoff. So that's why I say, go before the kickoff, share a drink and chat, and get everyone on the same page before that brief comes in. That's
all one big happy family, guys.
Yeah.
This is the message we're trying to convey. Do we have another question? Usually I have to ask 3 times until someone puts their hand up. Other than that, I can't see people. So. No? Oh, see.
It's not really a question, it's just to complement what she is talking about. I think we, in our organization, I'm part of RCS group, and we also have the digital inside, and then we have agencies that do the creative, but we have the marketing team also inside. And we realized we at some point, or initially some years ago, we were working in silos, then they would create an ad or either video ad, and we said, but this doesn't resonate with our audience, and then what we start doing was to have workshops between the digital team and show like this is what the data shows, what Google Analytics and Google Ads and YouTube shows what's audiences and what they are watching online and what they are interested by and what they're in the market to buy. And then it was very challenging at the beginning, but then we start sharing some case studies of how TV works together with YouTube, and how some audiences are not watching TV anymore, but they are on YouTube. Then now they are much more before they create a video or any creative. Then we all sit in the room, and I think it's kind of a learning experience and very challenging, but I think at the end, I think finally after 3 years, we got there. Yeah.
That's good to have a TV Plus advocate in the room, for sure. We appreciate you. There was a question just here.
Oh yeah, so I work for a brand that has multiple brands within it, and one of the things I've noticed is the consistent struggle with this whole concept of creative. And Artwell, you spoke a lot about it. I wonder, what is your biggest insight from an insider's perspective within Google? What is the biggest insight you've found with big brands and how they miss that message? Like, why can't they get to that specific message that you've been trying to deliver?
That's a very good question. The one thing I've noticed is, which is a common denominator with very big brands, is the machine moving very slowly, right? So it's easy for me to talk to the creative agency, but then if sometimes because there's a disconnect with the CMO and whatever, and he still wants to see TV, and it's hard to get the whole machine moving in the direction that's that supports all the different platforms, right? Because TV has such a stronghold. But then you get organizations like Outsurance where everything is in one place, and everything moves fluidly. Because that for me I've seen works quite well. And then you get agencies like here where we've done I've done more experiments with Ryan and team than I've done with most other clients, and because we do that kind of experimental stuff, it's easy for us to prove. So it's really trying to prove to the upper people in the business, because that's what's making the whole machine move slowly. And I think that's really like the big challenge for us. But if we can get those proof points that appeal to those people who sit in those CMO positions, or even sometimes the marketing managers themselves, then we can get the ball moving. But I feel like from the creative level point of view, we do have that, people are willing to hear us, and also the media side, definitely, yeah. So basically, I'm blaming clients.
Do we have any more questions? Was that hand up? Yep.
So, with the rise of YouTube Shorts, are you seeing the same formula in terms of creative storytelling, or how brands in SA can really approach it outside of, you know, collaborating with content creators? What are you guys seeing?
Can I take what you
I'll start. So with short, it's still fairly new in the market, and I think we're still also trying to understand it from a media perspective. But I think also it's telling a story in a shortened version and giving you an opportunity to do that. Just like you have a bumper, just like you have a 6-seconder, it's really understanding the composition of that particular format and using it to its best of its ability based on what it's made up of and how consumers are going to respond to that.
And I think and then from a creative point of view, what's interesting is if you had spoken to me 4 years ago, I would have told you to, you know, focus on 16:9, you know, the typical way that you shoot, and you know, that's the way we wanted you to focus. You know, your Instagram ads go on Instagram and stuff, but things have changed now. Like our best practices now, we are actually talking about 9:6, right? Specifically when we're talking about things like shorts. And what's nice about shorts is, especially if, let's say if you're in the entertainment space or any kind of industry where you can make compelling content, you can put that on shorts, and if the algorithm picks it up and does its magic, you can get a free advert that's going, you know, that's doing quite well, and we're seeing quite a lot of that. But like Zanele said, we are at the beginning phases. Eventually, we'll have an ABCDs of that. Right now, we're just assessing. But yeah, we're very excited about shorts.
Can I jump in on that for a sec? Yeah. So I think the key's in the name. I think not just in terms of short content, but short attention spans. So I would apply a bumper principle until the kind of data is out, is that assume that people are not going to be hanging around to see what you have to say. So say it in as quick as you can and let them move on.
Yeah, 100%.
I guess one of the ways in which shorts has been successful, definitely in the US and across parts of EMEA, is the ability for brands to authentically behave like creators, right? So that format currently is working really well for creators to tell stories, tell jokes, give tips, all of that kind of stuff. And it's a great way in which brands can do that. So if you wanted to take some of the laborious aspects of any kind of brand experience and you wanted to chop those up into shorts and to deliver that message in a really quick and entertaining and engaging way, delivered in a way that mirrors some of the creators that we've seen be really successful, it can be done very credibly on there, right? Which isn't necessarily the case when you're looking at TrueView or bumpers even. So that's also another way to look at it. And there's a whole workshop and work stream about brands acting as creators, and you can definitely talk to Art Ones and about how you can do that more effectively. But it's a great opportunity to trial that kind of stuff. It's got to be the right content, for sure, it's got to be the right content, but once you get it right, it's really impactful. Yeah. Any more questions? I see. Cool. Well, if not, thank you very much for coming. I was going to have a quick close for us because it is his party. Thank you very much for our panelists. Really appreciate Chris, Zanele, Ryan for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The last thing that I would love for you to do is to please do the feedback form. If you can, we really love data, as you can tell, and the more data we can get from you on how the session was would be amazing. But other than that, thank you so much. You've been amazing. All the people who cheered for me, I'm sending the bribery checks tonight. Thank you kindly. Have a wonderful day. Cheers.